Call the September meeting of the Jackson City School Board of Education to order. Roll call, please.
McDonald.
Present.
Moore.
Here.
Harless.
Here.
Morris.
Here.
Smith.
Here.
All are present.
Now we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance. Everybody please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Move on to the approval of the agenda. I need a motion for that.
So moved.
I'll second. Smith.
Yes.
Harless.
Yes.
Moore.
Yes.
Morris.
Yes.
McDonald.
Yes. And I need a motion for the approval of the minutes.
So moved.
Second?
Smith.
Yes.
Morris.
Yes.
Harless.
Yes.
Moore.
Yes.
McDonald.
Yes. Now we'll move on to recognition and awards. Mr. Howard.
Every year at our September meeting, we recognize those employees who retired at the end of last year. So just glad that we have that opportunity tonight to finally bring some people back to the meeting. I want to start off with Mr. Haynes at the high school.
Thank you, Mr. Howard. It gives me great pleasure to be able to introduce and talk about two members of our staff from last year that chose to retire at the end of the year. Both were guidance counselors. Both I was able to work with extensively here at Jackson High School. The first is Mr. Joe Finch. He came to us in 2013 from another school, we will say, after a very successful career there. He served as a classroom teacher there, and he has only served us, I say only, as a guidance counselor. My remarks about him from Jackson City Schools are not very long, but it does not nearly tell the story of what he meant to our students. The time that he invested during the day and away from the school and over the summers, trying to make sure that they had what they needed to take the step to the next level. I'm kind of in a unique position here because back in 1995, as a college senior, I had the opportunity to do my student teaching with Mr. Finch. I've known him for a long time, and he has been a source of he's been a mentor to me. He has listened to me over countless hours and miles as we discuss education quite often. And I really was blessed to be able to work with him as assistant principal and then as principal over these last few years. It made the transition into the principalship a lot easier having him in the office. So I'm thinking that this will be the last time he does retire. Only retiring from here on out will be on his bikes. So I would like to present Mr. Finch.
My glasses are all steamed up. If I had a speech written out, I couldn't see it anyway. But I'd just like to thank the board, administration, for 7 great years. I really miss the staff, and I really, really miss the students. And I'm one of those guys that retirement's a challenge. I feel, as I was telling Mr. Moore, we were walking in, I keep feeling like I'm late every morning when I get up and got to get ready, and I'm like, what am I getting ready for? And so, 42 years is a long time. I'm trying to get notched into a different routine, and with the help of my grandson every day, who I'm his teacher, one of his teachers, kind of getting used to it. So thank you. Thank you.
Next, we have Mr. Eric Coyne. Mr. Coyne began his career with Jackson City Schools in 1986. He taught high school science until 1996 exclusively. Then he taught intervention in 96, 97, 97, 98, and was back to teaching science. In 1998, 1999, he became the high school guidance counselor. From 99 till his retirement in July 2020, he was a freshman sophomore counselor at Jackson High School. He held roles as Jackson High School soccer coach, varsity soccer coach, tennis coach, golf coach, FFA advisor, and FTA advisor. He served many roles. He's somebody that it's real special to me because I've known him literally my entire life, having grown up with him. If it wasn't for him choosing to be a guidance counselor, I probably wouldn't be standing before you right now, because when he left the classroom, I was able to come in and become a science teacher at Jackson High School from another district because he opened up a position here. And for me, it's been a pretty good run these last 20-some years. And it's been especially fulfilling to work with him on a daily basis. What he meant to our students is beyond measure. The connections he was able to build with those kids, I just saw it every day. He was somebody they could confide in, and he always had their best interests at heart. And I truly appreciate all that he's invested into Jackson City Schools for many, many years. And we truly do miss him here working with our students, and I miss him being able to work with him every day. So I want to thank you for that, Mr. Coyne.
Ms. Michael, would you like to go next?
Retirement is not the end of the road, it is the beginning of the open highway. Author unknown. I would like to wish the following educators the best of luck on their open highway. Miss Laurel Marion. With 30 years in the education field, Laurel started her career on September 8, 1991, where she taught intervention at Jackson High School until 1995. From 1995 until 2005, she taught computers through the transition of Lick Middle School to the current Jackson Middle School. In 2006, she left for another district, however returned to Jackson City Schools in 2011 as the business and computer teacher at Jackson High School. In 2014, she moved to Jackson Middle School as the librarian, where she finished the duration of her career at the end of the 2019-2020 school year. Laurel held various roles throughout her career: assistant cheer coach, student council advisor, academic leader, test coordinator, and the infamous Jackson Middle School technology specialist. Thank you and congratulations, Miss Laurel.
Thank you. I, like Eric, will probably cry if I say anything. And as Heather went through the list of accomplishments, I don't even remember all of those. So she was very thorough. I've had a blessed career. So thank you to all of you. I've worked with amazing principals, amazing teachers, but more importantly, amazing students, and I will miss that. So thank you.
Our next educator is Miss Debbie Mock, who was not able to attend this evening. Debbie began her career at Jackson City Schools in 2004. Throughout her career with Jackson City Schools, she served in the role as math educator. She was infamous to students and teachers alike as a rapper of many math terms. She taught at Jackson High School for 6 years, prior to transitioning to Jackson Middle School in 2010. She completed her career at the end of the 2019-2020 school year at Jackson Middle School. Congratulations, Miss Debbie.
Ms. Ball.
I have Mitzi Jones. Mitzi Jones began her full-time in January 2000 as an intervention teacher after previously substituting. The next 6 years she spent teaching 5th grade at Franklin Elementary, then Southview Elementary. She taught intervention at Jackson Middle School for 1 year before moving to Northview Elementary. While at Northview, she taught 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade, and intervention. After spending 21 years with Jackson City Schools, Mitzi retired to babysit for her new granddaughter. I have had the privilege of working with Mitzi for 8 years at Northview Elementary. During that time, she taught 5th grade math. She was a 5th grade intervention teacher. This was a role she excelled in. She is missed at the school. She was always one to bring smiles on everyone's faces. My favorite role Mitzi played was Elf on the Shelf, where she would sit she would sit perched on it as an elf in an elf costume on a ladder in front of the building and greet every student. The students loved this so much, as we all did. She is truly missed. I know this is something she enjoys every day as much as we did. She is now impacting the life of one of the most important people in her life, the baby, her grandbaby. So congratulations, Mitzi.
I don't know if I can talk now. I just want to thank Mrs. Ball. She's a wonderful person. She's the best principal boss I've ever worked for, except now. Now I have a new boss that's much harder than you. And the staff is just awesome. I miss my staff and I miss my kids, and I can't wait until this pandemic's over so I can come back and see all the kids and be Elf on the Shelf. Volunteer. So thank you.
Ms. Oxenbein?
Yes, she isn't here. It is with pleasure that I have the opportunity to honor Michelle Henderson. Michelle started her career in the Jackson City Schools in 1989 and taught 4th grade at Kennison. Then she went to Westview to teach 4th grade in 2004. For the next 2 years, Michelle was at Southview teaching grades 4 and 5. The following year, she went to Northview as an intervention teacher. Westview must be the place where she wanted to be because she moved back in 2008 and finished her career there as a 3rd grade teacher and then an intervention teacher. Michelle was a great teacher. She cared about her students, and she made great strides with them and was such a positive influence on their lives. I asked Kelsey, her daughter, who also teaches at Westview, what her mom was doing since she retired, and she said, a whole lot of nothing. So I went on with some conversations with her, and I found out that actually Michelle has been baking. She makes the best Buckeyes you've ever had in your life. She works part-time at Jerry's, Jamestown Market. She goes to cornhole tournaments to watch her son Cody, who has made several appearances on ESPN, and she's helping to plan Kelsey's wedding. And in her spare time, she starts her day at 5 a.m. working part-time at Q Kids, where she teaches grammar to students in China. So a whole lot of nothing really turned into a whole lot of something. She still makes a difference in the lives of her students, and I want to thank her for everything she's done for the Jackson City Schools, and I wish her well on her retirement.
Mr. Hemsley?
Good evening. First of all, I'd be not doing my job if I didn't look around and say thank you, thank you, thank you as a football mom. I worked with you, and thank you. I got to work with all 4 of those people that were just introduced, and I'm telling you, you can't replace those kind of people. This next gentleman I'm going to introduce to you, we got a guy that's doing the job right now. He's doing a great job in Jamie Johnston, but this guy has been here for a long time. His knowledge of this place is greater than anybody sitting here in this room right now. He can tell you the ins and outs, where the pipes run, what plugs into what. He's Mr. Fix-It, Tim the Toolman Taylor kind of guy. John Daly began here in July 1st, 1990. His first year, he was a custodian. He moved into craftsman position in 1991 to 2003. In 2003, as the construction phase went on here at Jackson City Schools, he became the high school custodian coordinator. That was the title at that time. And he held that position for 4 years from 03 to 07. And from 07 until his retirement date last year, he was the assistant maintenance supervisor. I've got the pleasure to know John on a personal level beyond what you saw here. What you need to know is other school districts would call John and say, can you come refinish our gym floor? I know that personally from Alexander and some other schools, those guys, when I got this job, hey, have you met John Daly yet? No, I haven't met this guy yet. Boy, you know, my first impression of this guy was anything I ever needed, all I had to do was pick up the phone. He was everywhere, it seemed like all the time. That little white truck could go up and down the hill 1,000 times a day. He was in and out of this building. He never missed a ball game. Now he's at home taking orders from his boss, Linda, who's a cook at Northview. He's got 2 sons, Brandon, which has 2 little boys and a little girl, which I think Linda's happy because Adam, his other son's got 2 boys. So John's got 5 bosses at home that he listens to, and he's remodeled a garage. Well, you're just doing whatever Linda tells you to do, right, John? If he knows what's good for him. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my great pleasure to introduce Mr. John Daly to you as a retiree of the Jackson City Schools. And he does have a 45-minute speech. 45-minute speech. I told him that was fine.
I don't think I really deserved all that, but I appreciate it anyhow. You know, I do really think, really everyone in this room I know, and I want to thank them. I've seen 5 superintendents, and I'm not going to say how many board members I don't know. I have to take my shoes off to count all them. But anyhow, I do appreciate everything. The bad, the good, I've seen it all here. But you know what I remember more than anything is the good stuff. I don't dwell on the bad. I think about the good stuff all the time. There was a lot of it while I was here. And I appreciate it. And my phone's still always on, and anyone needs anything. I just want to thank all of you from the depths of my heart. Thanks again.
We had one other retiree this evening who couldn't be with us, and that's Marilyn Foster. She'd started off in the district as a cook 2 position, which is a part-time cook, and then worked many years after that as a full-time cook in the district. So Marilyn is now taking care of her mother, and she wasn't able to be here this evening. So let's give Marilyn a round of applause.
All right. Next part of the meeting, public participation. We have no one signed up. So for all of you that came, you're retirees, you're welcome to stay. Anybody that wants to leave now, you can go ahead and leave if you'd like to before we move on to the rest of the meeting. Mr. Wilson? Sure. If you want to get a picture, stick around here a minute, and Pete Wilson's going to get a picture for the paper before you.
Sure.
Sure.
Of all the retirees, I believe I taught 3 of them and worked with the rest of them. Joe Finch, for his speech class assignment for a demonstration, brought in a mini bike, one of those motorized motorcycles. Eric, I think he was in Spanish class, and Mitzi I had in Spanish and speech, I believe. I had the pleasure of teaching with Laurel and working with John, and he was there. If anything went wrong, it was fixed immediately. If you had a question, all you had to do was ask Mrs. Marion. I just really appreciate these people ever so much. Thank you for being a part of my life and the lives of the children that we serve. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Smith.
You can tell.
Hey, John.
It's a shame their families didn't come.
All right, we'll move on. Mr. Ball, Patrick Ball, is going to, from People's Insurance, has a presentation for the board.
Hey, I'm going to, at this time, I'm going to set my clock here because we are permitted to have a mask break. So while Mr. Ball is doing his presentation, board members, if you'd like to take your mask off for just a couple minutes here. No,
No,
go
you
ahead.
can go on.
Is this like recess or something?
Yes.
I can't
Yeah,
tell with
we
this
can hear you.
mask. So, I've got all kinds of notes here and other rigmarole. Did I leave something up there? No? Found it. I apologize, public speaking is not my forte. I'm much more comfortable looking at numbers and spreadsheets and things like that. I did that from the beginning, I don't want you to think that I'm going to go through all this information because I'm not. I want to thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. I want you to know that it's been my privilege to serve as the broker since 2012. But with COVID and all of the complexity that has put on many health systems and the uncertainty around the impact that will have on our claims, I thought that this would be a good time to address the board. And not only that, but to talk to you about what we've been able to do together as a team over the past 10 years. And just a preamble to some of the things I'm looking forward to in 2021. I'm very proud of what we have accomplished, and I'm excited about the future. You can tell that I'm not a good public speaker. I've got all these bullet points, and I just want to talk. So one of the things that I'm really not very good at is self-promotion. And I think that I've got evidence of that because people that aren't my clients generally will say, I'll say, I'm Patrick Ball, and they say, you're Dr. Ball's son, or you're the area auctioneer. Most people have no idea that I make my living as a health insurance broker. I got my license in 2001, and I'm fortunate and grateful to have clients in Dayton, Columbus, Cincinnati, lots of places in between. I've got clients as far away as Ashland, Pikeville, and Prestonsburg in Kentucky, Huntington, and Lewisburg, West Virginia. So I'm very proud of that, but sometimes I feel like people know me as Doc and Mary Ball's kid or the local auctioneer. So in an effort to tell you guys the breadth of the expertise that not only I bring, but the entire team brings. My mentor and co-agent on your account is Rick McNally, who's been in the business for more than 40 years. A lot of the relationships that he established when he was coming up, they're now the CEOs of the health insurance carriers. So those types of relationships are forged over long periods of time. My largest client has over 1,000 employees in 6 states. Most of my clients have been with me for many years. So enough about me. In 2011, I had the opportunity, along with Rick, to provide a bid for the Jackson City Schools health insurance plan. Ever since that day, we've worked every year towards one goal, and that goal is to provide the best benefits in the most cost-effective way to the board and the employees for the long term. And in my notes, I've underlined the word long term, because you see, that's the hard part. Benefits are complex. You know, if you can boil it down to the essence, right? Health insurance is a function of cost. You know, health insurance companies generally look at the cost of the claims and then they add profit, and that's what develops the premium that everyone pays. That's a gross oversimplification, but that is what health insurance is in a nutshell. Here's how much it's going to cost to take care of a group of people. Here's how much we want to price in for profit. That's how much we're going to charge. So the reality is that is the tip of the iceberg in all that goes into the evaluation and management of a plan. One thing that I'm very proud of, when I first got in the business, people said, Pat, you know, if you can keep a health plan from increasing double digits, then you're ahead. Now, once again, lots of things change over periods of time, but when I first started, you know, health insurance was going up 20, 40% all over the place. We had the Affordable Care Act being passed. So I always took that to heart, that in a bad year, things were going to be really bad, but I should always try to strive for a single-digit increase. So I've provided you a spreadsheet with the efforts that have been made over the past 10 years. And in addition to that, I've provided a narrative that talks about where my head was, where the administration's head was, and where the insurance committee's head was as we navigated these decisions. I'm not going to go through it. I think everybody would be asleep or in tears by the time I got done, but I want you to know that I am more than available at any time to talk to anybody about any specifics, either in my analysis of the rates or why we made the decisions that we did. And then behind that, there's some data. You know, back to my original statement that in its essence, insurance is a function of cost. So you have claims information for periods of time that we were making decisions on the employee's health plan. And spreadsheets and numbers are great, and that's the least that I feel like I owe to Jackson City Schools, and quite frankly to all my clients. So with the time that I've been allotted, I would rather talk about the handout that's by itself on the page underneath my business card. These are some of the things that I am extremely proud of, and things that don't show up on a spreadsheet. Once again, I've got math, and then I've got what are we doing? Because health insurance, I don't think anybody would disagree that the cost of care is out of control. And you can blame lots of different people. You can blame the cost at the hospital or the doctor, or you can blame the insurance company. So as any strategy, we have a couple of different avenues that we evaluate to make sure that the cost is under control. A lot of things have been done. The Affordable Care Act is a great example, and I'm not going to talk politics because I think that's suicide. But the Affordable Care Act didn't control cost, it shifted risk. It shifted risk from one thing to another. It shifted risk from the provider to the insurance company, right? That's a good strategy, but in the grand scheme of things, 50,000 feet up, the Affordable Care Act didn't address cost. If the premium is a function of cost, what are we doing, not just at Jackson City Schools, but in general, to control cost? The things that I have on this page are part of the strategy that we've employed to maintain a good benefit for a great group of employees, and I certainly would be remiss if I took credit for it. This has been a team effort, but I feel like I've played a part in the things that I'm about to discuss. And I know time's getting short, so I'll be quick. In 2011, one of the first things we evaluated was we had an ER problem, an emergency room visit. The incidence of Jackson City Schools employees seeking emergency room care was higher than average. And a lot of people would be quick to say, well, daggone it, it's the employees, they shouldn't be running to. What we discovered was that wasn't the problem. The problem wasn't employees going to the emergency room, it's that we live in southeastern Ohio. If it's 3 o'clock on a Saturday, where else do you have to go? So in collaboration with Mr. Howard and a local urgent care provider, some of you were on the board for this. Mr. Howard asked for a pool of money, and let's develop this relationship with a provider, and let's allow our employees to go there at a fixed cost, right? So that accomplished two things. We avoid the most expensive type of care, which is emergency room, and that claim never hits our claims experience. Keep in mind, the premium is a function of the claims. So I think that has gone well. The program still exists to this day, and it was a great move. Shortly after we took over the plan, we noticed the high incidence of cardiovascular disease and diabetes, and we have a plan that I took over. It's a high deductible health plan. What does that mean? Well, that means there are certain rules involved that if you have this high deductible health plan, then your contributions to a health savings account can be without tax, right? In order to get that benefit, you have to have certain rules in place. One of the rules, can't have co-pays prior to meeting the deductible. So we had all these employees that had hypertension and diabetes and high cholesterol. And what the fear is, hey, we've got this deductible. We can't protect them with a copay. How can we solve this problem? Because the last thing you want is a non-compliant diabetic. You know, you want a diabetic taking their medication, and if the cost of the drug was a barrier to them receiving that care, that would be a problem. So we went to Anthem at the time. We explained that, don't you want a hypertensive on a beta blocker? You know, don't you? And they were able to add a list of drugs that are classified as preventative and not subject to that restriction on HSA plans. And I think that has been the best thing that we have done together since I started. I can't tell you how many employees came up to me and said, my cholesterol medication doesn't cost me anything anymore. My diabetes medication doesn't cost me anything anymore. So now for the first time, we had this shift from, well, you know, we've got to take the copay out. But in the grand scheme of things, was that really the right thing to do for the employees? If they weren't compliant in their medication, what about a stroke? What about diabetic retinopathy amputation? What are we doing as a health plan to control costs not today, but 3 years from now? So I feel like the preventative drug list was a phenomenal move. Once again, can't take credit for all of it. It was a team effort. The employee wellness program, once again, this gets to the crux of what are we doing to control the cost of claims at our plan? And when I first started, we had a Know Your Numbers event with United Healthcare. They were the carrier at the time, and the liberating thing about that was we had employees that hadn't been to the doctor in 10 years. We had employees that didn't have an established relationship with a primary care doctor. I can tell you that there were several incidences of people that were borderline diabetic and didn't know it, that had high blood pressure and didn't know it. So as we established that baseline, Know Your Numbers, we've built upon that every year, my father gave me an example. One time I got a letter from King's Daughters that said, you're in level 2 kidney failure. And Dad said, you're 45 years old. Everybody's in level 2 kidney failure when they're 42. It's a benchmark. If you go from level 1 to level 2 when you're 26 years old, that's a problem. He said, don't panic. Go back, get your kidney function test as part of your annual physical every year. You know what? It's never raised. My numbers have not changed. But when you don't know your baseline numbers, how can you make informed decisions on how to proceed with your care? How can your physician make those types of determinations? So I was blessed to have a great relationship with the Well-a-Ween Committee. We started to integrate the biometric screening event with the employee wellness event so that the employees could get their flu shots while they were there, covered by the health plan. That took some negotiating between the health department and the carrier at the time because they were out of network, but we figured that out. So now employees, whether they had the health insurance or didn't, could get that flu vaccine. Why is that important? Nothing more expensive than a couple of days in intensive care because you got the flu and you have an underlying health condition. We continue to move forward, and the wellness program that we put in last year with Medical Mutual of Ohio actually has a significant, rather than rewarding the employee with a gift card, right? We contracted with a company called EA Wellness, and they, you can read in my notes from the 2019 renewal, they made things a little more interesting. They said, look, we're going to take your population, and if the employees do X, Y, and Z, then we're going to put 1 month's worth of premium at risk, meaning that we would be willing to return that money to the district if X, Y, and Z happen. We had to have attendance at the biometric screening event. Employees had to log into the health plan website. They had to compare costs at different facilities to find out where the care can be had at a different price. So I'm happy to report that we earned 50% of 1 month's premium. That money was returned to the district because of the wellness program that we have all, insurance committee, administration, and to a small part, our agency. So for the first time, we got $159,000 back to the school because the employees were doing everything that they could control to control costs. Next page. Several years ago, and I'd be remiss if I didn't say, this account is particularly important to me because my kids, one of them graduated from here, one is currently attending, and my wife is an administrator here, so I hear things occasionally. One of the things that I heard a couple of years ago was we've got an issue. We can't find the nurse, school nurse. We've had a hard time. So I picked up the phone and arranged a meeting for Mr. Howard and a local healthcare provider at Bob Evans. And we talked through a lot of different things, not just the school nurse function, but how that could be integrated into the health plan, how it could be integrated into our student population health in addition to the employees here at Jackson City Schools, and also more broadly our community. A tremendous effort went into that, and very little on my part, but I feel like I was able to bring two people together that worked their tail off. And so Jackson City Schools was able to contract with this healthcare provider to provide a nurse. And that was a step in the things that we discussed that day. The next step was, how much more powerful could it be if we could find a healthcare provider to not just have a nurse on staff for the benefit of the kids, but also a practitioner to help our employees, our students, and the community at large. So we received, I received a few, there were a couple RFPs. I think that once this idea was out, a lot of people wanted to duplicate it, or they were going down the same path. Mr. Howard said one thing: if we're going to do this, I have one requirement. The kids have to be the focus. The kids have to be the focus, because think about the payer system. Most health insurance companies want privately insured people, right? That's what they want because they get paid the most when they see those people. Mr. Howard said, and I won't use his language, he said, I don't care about that. We have to protect the kids. I'm doing this for the kids. So we found a healthcare provider that was willing to weight things that way. And one of the proudest moments of my life, we had a ribbon cutting and opened the Ironman Clinic. And I can tell you that if nothing else changes, if it benefits us not one penny in finance, there are several children that, because that clinic was there and because they had access to the health care, we might have saved their lives. We certainly have made sure that they're going to have a better life than they would have had if they hadn't had access to health care. And to me, that's what it's about. Just like, in 2012, access was the problem. That's why people went to the emergency room. Access was the problem for a large portion of our community, not restricted to Jackson City Schools, but we've got a lot of people that one vehicle can't get there. Kids are at school. That's the only opportunity that they have to seek medical attention. And now, because of the trust and the work that we've all done, the school has that resource for its children. And I get tickled because I think 2 days ago, Governor DeWine, he posted a telemedicine for school districts blueprint. And it's great, and it does a lot of things, but since this is on the interwebs, maybe somebody from DeWine's office will watch. Humbly, I think that what Jackson City Schools done is better. And if they would ever like to come down from Columbus to have that explained to them, I think that they would benefit from that. The last thing that I'll mention is pricing transparency, and it's not a secret, but one of the things that we asked our employees to do is, hey, put in a tonsillectomy, see how much it costs at a number of providers, locally and in more metropolitan areas. I am the son of a physician. I will never tell anyone where to go. But I do believe that people need information to make the best decision. And that's all I wanted to point out. Well, what's the result of that? Our claims have decreased. And we've actually applied pressure on a lot of the local healthcare systems to adjust their pricing, specifically on lab. That has benefited not only the employees of this district, but the entire community. And I've done a lot of talking, and you guys have been very patient and listened, and I could talk easily for 4 more hours about this, but I want to make sure that you know how grateful I am for the opportunity. I hope to be able to continue in that capacity. There are things that are in motion that I'm not really at liberty to discuss, but I assure you that it's very exciting for the district. Any questions? I'm an open book. So's my office. You guys call me anytime, and I mean sincerely, thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr.
Thanks,
Ball. We
Patrick.
appreciate your presentation very much. All right, well,
Just real quick, it is obvious that Pat is passionate about our insurance here, and he does have skin in the game, as he alluded to. And he is being very modest when he talks about some of the programs that we've implemented over the last several years, going back to the nurse practitioner program, where he negotiated the contract to allow our people to be able to go to nurse practitioners, where the district would pay $25 per visit, and I think our employees paid $10. I still remember that day that we had the lunch at Bob Evans with the 2 people from Adina to talk about the school nurse, and which our district was paying probably $75,000 to $80,000 a year for a school nurse, and we're getting for a fraction of the cost from Adina to provide a school nurse for our elementary building. Of course, the Ironman Clinic, we have nothing basically in that. Adina has invested heavily in our district, and Adina has really gone out of their way to pretty much adopt the Jackson City School District, and they've got a lot of money tied up in the Ironman Clinic. The premium holiday that he referred to, that was, you said, a half a month's premium. I don't know if you said the amount, maybe you did, but it's about $150,000 for a half of a month's premium that we were able to get back. And then all of the wellness programs that have been implemented over the last several years here. Right now, we're currently in negotiations for our insurance. It's that time of year where we always negotiate. I'm not sure, Pat, I don't want to put you on the spot here, but what's current trend? That's like a 2-word answer now.
You guys are in a very strong position, and I think that it's largely due to the efforts that we, and if you read the narrative, you're going to read a roller coaster novel about what we've done and how we've got there. But I think that the district, regardless of what you do, are in a very good position this year. What does that mean? You know, trend nationally is about 11%, so I get frustrated with that number, but what is trend? Trend is there's a new biologic medication out now for, pick a disease. You know, when Remicade first came out, I'll use an older example. It was $50,000 an injection. It's for Crohn's disease. And, you know, there are medications that are life-saving and very, but they're very, very expensive. When I first started, the pharmacy spend for Jackson City Schools accounted for about 13%, meaning for every dollar in claims, 13 cents went to medication. We're now over 25%. And it's not, the good news is there's some great medications coming out. The bad news is they're very expensive. That's part of trend. Trend is also most of these healthcare providers, they negotiate multi-year contracts, meaning that at the Cleveland Clinic, I'll use one that's not local, they've got a contract with Anthem or United Healthcare or Medical Mutual that says, this year you get $1,000 for this procedure, next year you get $1,200. You know, so that is trend. The inflationary factor that's associated with the delivery of care is trend. So if we were priced at a point where we just experienced trend, then we would say 11% is what we should expect. Not what we should accept, but what we should expect. I think we'll be significantly better than trend this year. So it should be under 11%. And it hasn't been that the case. And I got to say this before I leave. I want to thank the insurance committee, because when we started this cost compare tool, it was anybody, they're not going to listen to the broker. You know, we had meetings at different buildings with teachers and said, hey, we need you to look at the cost, and very little adoption. But when the insurance committee started to go out and tell the employees, hey, you really need to do this, that's when it really took off, and I want to thank them for that. And I thought about ending with this, and then I forgot about it because I get too excited. But in 2011, I got a call. I'd been an agent for less than 10 years. It was Mr. Howard, and he said, meet me at McDonald's. And I said, okay. And he said, Pat, our health insurance is going up, and we're considering giving you a shot, but I'm going to tell you something. And I've never forgot it. He said, you know, when I was at Pike County, I wanted to do business locally because the people in the community are the children that we're educating. I want to keep my money locally. But he looked me dead in the eye and he said, but I'm not willing to pay 1 penny more to use the local guy. I've never forgot that, and I've negotiated every year under that assumption. So appreciate your time.
Do you have anything else, Mr. Howard, on that? We'll move on to the consent agenda now.
Okay, it is recommended that the board approve the consent agenda as follows. And I'm going to tell you ahead of time, I'm trying to not wear my glasses because they fog up with this mask on, and I can't see without my glasses, so this might be a bit of a struggle here. So I've got my iPad about as far away as I can get. Debbie, I might have you come and hold it for me so I can read it a little better, but we'll try it. Item A is resignations. I'd like to recommend that the board accept the resignations as noted. Item B, recommend that the board approve Michael Ross as a cleaning person. Item C is a recommendation to employ 047 classified employees, and there's a big long list of those individuals. Item D is a recommendation to employ certified subs. several of those teacher subs. Item E is a recommendation to employ a list of classified subs for the positions as noted. Some of them are for multiple positions. Item F is a recommendation to approve Martha Cook as a site assistant for Latchkey program. Item G is a recommendation to employ a whole list of supplemental contracts for the current school year. Item H is a recommendation to approve a whole list of volunteers, of which we're probably using very, very few of those at this point in time, but we'll go ahead and approve them in case we can use them at a later date. Item I is a recommendation to rescind 4 contracts, and I want to be clear here that these individuals whose contracts we're rescinding have done nothing wrong. It's an error on my part. I accidentally put them on the wrong list at the last board meeting, so I want to rescind those contracts. Item J is a recommendation to create the Carol Wilson Memorial Scholarship Fund. Item K is a recommendation to create the K-12 Prevention Education Initiative Fund. Item L is a recommendation to create the Coronavirus Relief Fund known as the Broadband to High Connectivity Fund. Item M is a recommendation to create a Rural and Small Town School District Fund. It's another part of the CARES program. Item N is a recommendation to approve a list of school support groups for different sports and clubs. Item O is a recommendation to approve a calendar revision. And just real quickly on that, we always take that Wednesday off for the Apple Festival. Of course, no Apple Festival this year, so it really doesn't make much sense to have that Wednesday off when we can possibly get another day of school in. Mr. Murray had brought this to my attention a week or so ago, and so we looked at a couple of other dates. So we'll be going to school on that Wednesday, and I believe what we decided was to extend the Thanksgiving break by a day, wasn't it, Mr. Murray? Yeah, and that's in your notes there. Item P is a recommendation to amend the mask policy because that thing's changed numerous times. Every time the governor's spoken, changed it. So if you remember, the board gave me authority to rewrite that and make it fit the order that came out. Item Q is a recommendation to approve a resolution of intent not to provide grades 7 through 8 career tech education. We approve this every year. We have it for one of the 2 grades, but not for the other. And if you don't have it for both, you have to file this resolution with ODE. So this is not new. It's something we do every year. Item R is a recommendation that the board will authorize payment for parents and guardians of Christian Life Academy students for transportation services. Item S is a recommendation to approve credentialed counselor evaluations. Item T, a recommendation to approve credentialed teacher evaluators. Item U is a recommendation to approve the special education handbook. And I believe that concludes the consent agenda.
Are there any items need removed by board members for separate consideration? Seeing none, I need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
I'll second.
Morris,
Yes.
Harless,
Yes.
Moore,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
McDonald.
Yes. And we'll move on to new business. Mr. Howard, you want to talk about the...
Yeah, I need the board to, I recommend that the board grant approval for a chiller replacement at Southview Elementary in the amount of $114,100. We did bid that with 3 or 4 different companies, and Geiger Brothers was the winner on that. And I just want to say before you vote on that, that I've talked to you about this before, but our buildings are at the age where things are starting to go bad. And we actually have another chiller in, I don't know, is it Westview, the other one, Joe? The other one at Westview that we've kind of been nursing along. Much like this one started, with. So I'm anticipating that sometime in the near future, you're going to get another one of these for Westview. But this is something that we do have to do, so I would recommend that the board approve this expenditure.
Okay, need a motion on approval for a second?
So moved.
Second.
Smith,
Yes.
Moore,
Yes.
Harless,
Yes.
Morris,
Yes.
McDonald.
Yes.
Motion passes.
And we'll move on now to the financial report. Ms. Strasser.
Item A is the standard treasurer's report for the period ending 8/31/2020.
And I need a motion for approval.
So moved. Second.
Morris,
Yes.
Moore,
Yes.
Harless,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
McDonald.
Yes.
Item B is the amended certificate of estimated resources for the fiscal year 2021.
And I need a motion for approval.
So moved.
Second.
Smith,
Yes.
Morris,
Yes.
Harless,
Yes.
Moore,
Yes.
McDonald.
Yes.
And item C is the permanent appropriations that we file with the county auditor for the fiscal year as well.
And motion for approval.
So moved.
Second.
Harless,
Yes.
Moore,
Yes.
Morris,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
McDonald.
Yes.
And that's all I have.
And move on to information and discussion items. Mr. Howard.
Yeah, I have a few things. You probably got the robocall yesterday, I believe it was, that there's additional money, COVID money, and so our students, all of our students in the Jackson City schools will be able to get free lunch and breakfast from now until the first of the year. Now, you've probably seen where some other neighboring districts have been able to get free lunch and or breakfast for multiple years or for the entire year. And we've talked about this before. We just simply don't qualify. In fact, we're not even close to qualifying for that. I mean, you have to have 40% direct certified, which means 40% of the people have to have applied and be accepted for assistance. And in our district, we have currently about 24%, I think it is. So we're not even close to being able to get that. But we will take the next several months where our people can take advantage of getting free breakfast and free lunch. And then after the first of the year, unless there's additional money that comes through that COVID fund, we would revert back to whatever your status was prior to this week. If you were full pay, you'll go back to full pay. If you were reduced, you'll go back to reduced. I would encourage people that if your status changes in the coming months, to go ahead and fill out a form and get it sent in, and then after the first of the year, if you qualify, you could still continue to receive that benefit. Item B, just a quick update on the coaches' grievance. If you remember, we talked the last board meeting about the grievance for the supplemental pay for spring coaches last year. We are in the process of selecting arbitrators for that right now. The arbitrator has yet to be named, so that should be coming here probably within the next few weeks, and then the arbitrator will assign a date, and we will proceed with the arbitration.
Question.
Yep.
Who is eligible to be that arbitrator?
Well, the way it works is the American Arbitrators Association sends a list of, initial list of 15 different arbitrators to myself and the same 15 names to the union. And we are to rank all 15 of those from 1 to 15. The first round, you're also allowed to totally eliminate an arbitrator. If you've had an issue with an arbitrator and you want to eliminate one, then that person cannot be selected. If you don't have any in common in the top 4 or 5, then the American Arbitration Association will give you a second round, which is what happened, by the way. The first 15, we didn't agree on any of those 15. So we were recently sent a new list of 5 arbitrators, and you're not allowed to cross out any of those 5. You have to absolutely rank them from 1 through 5, and one of those 5 will be assigned. And they're people from Many of them are not even from the state of Ohio. They're from all over the place
Okay, that's what I was going to ask next. Where are they from? Thank you.
with different backgrounds and so forth, too.
Okay, thank you.
As far as an update on the school opening, I think we've had a great school opening. Now, I will say that we've had some situations with COVID-related situations. But as far as the kids wearing their mask and, I think as far as the safety of our staff and students, I'm not sure we could do a whole lot more in the district. And I think most of you have been out and been through the buildings and you've seen some of the things that are taking place in our buildings. And I think you'd have to be impressed with how our staff has handled it and impressed with our students. And, I had people say, there's no way we're going to keep these kindergarten, first graders wearing masks and stuff. Sometimes those little kids are easier to deal with than the grown-ups. So I think that they've really bought into it, and I think they're doing a great job, and I think our staff's doing a great job. And someone may say, well, we've heard that you've had a COVID case or two. We knew we were going to have that. We would have never agreed to even start school if we thought for 1 second that we would have to shut down if we had a COVID case. It's not possible to think that we could put this many students into our buildings and not have a case or two. And we've had that, and we've communicated that to the appropriate people whenever it has happened. And then recently, the governor has now ordered a new reporting mechanism for how we need to make sure to report whenever we have COVID cases in our district. So if you get a chance, go to our district website. I'm not sure if it's on there right now, but it will be by tomorrow, but I'm guessing it's probably on there now. We have implemented a dashboard on our district website that will break it down by building, and it will tell you how many COVID positive cases we've had from students in each building and how many from staff in each building. And then we also have a tab for district-wide, because we have some people that are not necessarily assigned to a building. For example, all the people who work down in my office, they're not associated with a building. Our maintenance people, they're not associated with a particular building. They would be in district-wide staff. And then we also went ahead and broke it down, because there's people who are wanting to know this, but we have a tab that shows how many of our athletes have tested positive. But in addition to positive test results, I've also included in our dashboard the number of people that have been quarantined. So for example, if we've had a teacher who worked with 6 or 7 kids closely and the teacher had tested positive, then those 6 or 7 students are quarantined. That will show up on our dashboard. So you can look at any time and see how many people in our building, students, staff. If you're interested in a particular building, you can see in that building how many students and staff are quarantined, how many students and staff have tested positive for COVID, and then you can get a total at the end. Now, I will caution you that if you go down through and you try to add them up, in some cases, people are counting twice. I'll give you an example. My daughter's a student here at Jackson High School, so if she were to test positive for COVID, she would show up in the Jackson High School number as a positive, but she would also show up as an athlete as a positive. But in the total, that would only be 1. So keep that in mind as you're looking through that. And I say that like there's been a ton. There hasn't been. I think we've actually had 2 or 3 adults that have tested positive and 2 or 3 kids. Now, we've had a few that have been quarantined as a result of being around and being exposed to some of those people, but by and large, our numbers are not real big numbers. This broadband grant that we applied for and were awarded, I think it's about $52,000 and can be spent on things like hotspots. Unfortunately, hotspots don't always work because you got to be able to have a cell phone service for a hotspot to even work. But there are some situations where we think we can use some of this broadband grant money. All 3 of our elementary buildings were awarded this fresh fruit and vegetable grant, and I'm not sure of the amount of it off the top of my head, but Deb, you know? Yeah, $88,000, and all of our kids in all 3 of our elementary buildings will get some kind of fruit during the day. It can't be during breakfast, can't be during lunch. It's got to be at a different time, so it's like a snack kind of thing. We had it once before for one of our buildings. I think Northview had gotten it one year and the other two buildings didn't. So this year we're fortunate that all three of our elementary buildings got that grant. And then lastly, I want to talk just for a moment about our success program. Our success program is, we're getting ready to start. I think October 12th is the date. Debbie has worked long and hard with the ESC, and we apply every year for all 5 buildings. Now, rarely are you going to get a grant for all 5. So lots of times, these are 5-year grants, so a lot of times we'll have buildings that are in, for example, right now we have Southview and the middle school that have the success grant. Southview is in the 2nd year of a 5-year. The middle school is in the 3rd year of a 5-year. Westview, Northview, and the high school do not have the grant. But the board had voted in the last couple of years that we wanted to do something on a smaller version for those other 3 buildings. I think 1 or 2 years we actually paid for that. The board paid for that. Last year, I believe Debbie was able to take the funds from title money, and it didn't come out of board funds. But my point here is, with getting ready to start success, and we did transportation last year for all 5 of the buildings. Getting ready to start success, one of the questions that I've been asked is, we did a lot of things at the beginning of the year to try to not mingle kids, going, for example, to self-contained classrooms. If we have success, you're going to have, I don't know, I'll just throw a number out there, 20 second graders that stay after school. Well, right now, those 20 second graders might be in 3 or 4 different classrooms. And so now you're going to take those 20 kids and put them all together, and then there's the possibility that they go back into their classroom the next day. We have been doing latchkey, and you could make the same argument about latchkey, although it's on a much smaller scale. I mean, we don't have nearly the people that participate in latchkey as what participate in success. So there are some options here for success. Number one, you could say, we're just going to do it the way we've always done it. It's a $200,000 grant per building per year. If we don't do it, we're going to have to send that money back. I don't know that we want to send $200,000, well, $400,000, because we got 2 buildings back. You could say, we're not going to have it and send the money back. That's an option. We could limit the number of students, because I think in the grant, from talking to Debbie, we're actually supposed to target like 75 students in those buildings. We've just never told any kids that they can't come. So we've had as many as 140 or even more than that, maybe, Deb. How many do you have, Melissa? 170? How about you? So, yeah, way more than what we could. We could limit it to that. We've just never done that before because we didn't want to tell anybody no. That's a possibility. I don't know. Obviously, we're not going to have the numbers that we've had in past years because we've got 400 plus students that aren't even here because they've chosen the online method. So you're not going to they don't have as many people in their buildings already, so you won't have as many because of that. And we could target certain kids that are at risk. The problem with doing that, I think, is that the way it works now, Monday through Thursday after school, we have success once the program starts. And so those kids that are in latchkey, parents don't pay Monday through Thursday once success starts. If they stay on Friday, it's latchkey and they have to pay. So if we limit the number of kids that participate, you could have kids that are in latchkey. We would have to still run the latchkey program because right now, well, not right now, but when we start the program Monday through Thursday, we basically don't have latchkey after school because they go to success. We would still have to have the latchkey, and some people would be paying for their kids to go to latchkey because they weren't selected as kids to participate in the program. I don't know that we want to go that route. So I just like to hear your input. I'm kind of the opinion that we're We're already doing this with latchkey, and I think that our building principals can figure out a way that we can keep these kids apart and still be able to social distance as best we possibly can.
Any thoughts about that?
Well, I think it's important, and I also feel like if there's any way, I know it's putting a lot more on our principals, but if there's any way we can bring in as many kids that need it, I think it's a plus. I think it's necessary.
So you're in favor of keeping it as it is?
Yeah.
Is there anybody that feels differently than that?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's a valuable program, and we don't get it every year, and we're lucky when we can get it and take advantage of it, and I think we need to do the best we can to keep it.
Another issue to think about is that, and Debbie probably knows this way better than I do because she writes all these grants, but I'm not sure how the feds would feel if we turn in $400,000 and say we're not going to use it, and then when we reapply again, are they going to say, well, they didn't? I mean, I know you would like to think that they would say, well, it's COVID and this year's an anomaly, and they're not going to hammer us going forward on that, but I can't really say that. I mean,
Did you?
right.
Did you tell us which schools did get them? I didn't catch that, maybe.
Right now, Southview and the middle school have the two grants.
Right, but there isn't any other ones right now at this point in time, besides those two?
I can't hear you.
No new ones?
No new ones, no. We did apply and were denied the other three buildings, but.
So will we fund those?
Huh?
Will we fund the other ones? The other
Yeah,
elementary?
I think that Debbie may have some, and we may have to fund part of it, but I think that you can probably pull some from federal and title monies to be able to, and it'll be maybe a smaller scaled down version of what we do at Southview in the middle school. Is that correct? In Richmond. Yeah. Okay. Anything else? All right, we'll proceed then with success on October 12th. So we'll start accepting our applications from students in the coming days and start trying to line up staff. Now that is the other thing that I do need to point out is that obviously it's just like with school. If we can't staff it, then that's an issue. We may have to limit it if we can't get enough staff, because we do have a lot of our staff right now that's already working in the online program, and there's a lot of work involved in that. Right, Mr. Murray? So I'm not sure how many of those people, a lot of those people were people that worked in the Success program, so I don't know if those people are going to be able to commit more time after school or not. So we'll just have to play that by ear and base what we can do with the program on how well we can staff it, if that sounds like a plan. Transportation's always an issue for us on that, and now it's, of course, an even bigger issue. So. That's all I have.
Okay. Any other comments, thoughts on that? Anybody? If not, we'll move on to closing items. Is there any closing items from board members? I'd just like to thank all the staff, Mr. Howard, his staff, the teachers, the administrators in the buildings, and custodial staff, everybody, for all the work they're doing, because I know it's not easy, and I've walked through the buildings and gone through the buildings, and they're constantly doing something. Staff cleaning, the teachers, the administrators is a constant all day going, and I appreciate it. Just wanted to let everyone know that. If there's no other items, we'll need a motion to adjourn if there's nothing else. Have a second?
Second.
Meeting's adjourned.